Good evening. I'm Kai Joyce and you're watching Liverpool Hope News. Our top story tonight. Zoe's Place, a baby hospice in the northwest, is struggling for funding and have called upon the City of Liverpool to raise over £5 million to keep its doors open.
Those small donations, I think they were really touching, especially online, and the messages that came along with them. People gave what they could, but the important message is that lots of people gave a little and it quickly raised a lot.
In other stories tonight, we have the recent updates on the floodings and wildlife and how it affects the wetlands in the northwest. It seems there's been a recent spike in the public using disposable electronic cigarettes, especially in children, and has streaming services grown to become the death of classic radio and physical media? Now, onto our top story. Zoe's Place, based in the city of Liverpool. And since it announced its potential closure, the people of Liverpool have come together to raise the £5 million they need to stay open. This is Rebecca Vasey reporting on the subject. Over to you, Rebecca.
Zoe's Place, the UK's only baby hospice charity, recently announced that due to a rise in the projected costs for securing their new site, their original branch in Liverpool would have to close down. Since then, Liverpool's community has come together to raise the £6.4 million needed to ensure the branch stays open.
Hi, my name's Amy Clare and I am Capital P lead here at Zoe's Place. People got behind us so quickly. I think the mentality was, not on our watch. Liverpool's not going to allow this to happen. Those small donations, I think they were really touching, especially online, and the messages that came along with them. People gave what they could, but the important message is that lots of people gave a little and it quickly raised a lot. I feel really lucky to work here. I every day see the incredible care that's provided to babies and actually the experience that babies have. I think some people think that Zoe's Place could be a sad place. It's one of the happiest places I've ever worked.
To find out more about the fundraising efforts, I spoke to the organiser of a bake sale here at Liverpool Hope University and the organisers of an open mic at a local bar.
When I heard that it was closing down, I saw that it was the only place in the UK that did something for children or babies who need this sort of care. And it's just something close to my heart.
Liverpool's known to have friendly people, and it's not just friendly, it's if you're in need, someone is there to help. I think it's a representation of Liverpool.
I'd like to think so, but we're a bit biased because we're from the area.
I've never seen this amount of love or support given to something like this.
A recent study found that almost 2/3 of people across the UK want to see more funding from the government for charities. I asked the organisers whether they agreed with this.
The easy answer is yes, but of course that budget would have to come off from somewhere else where we could end up lacking, and then there's issues that arise there.
I would say so. I believe these places offer vital services to people who really need it. Zoe's Place can't be replaced.
Whether a demonstration of the kindness of Liverpool or just the innate nature of people to support each other, it couldn't have been for a better cause. Zoe's Place indeed cannot be replaced. Back to you at the studio.
Thank you, Rebecca. What an incredible thing the city has done in union. With the recent flooding in the West Kirby area, it has had a strong impact on the environment for wildlife. Emily Smith has gone to the area to find out what people think on the subject. Over to you, Emily.
As flood risks are rising in Liverpool, how can the wildlife and the environment be protected? Earlier today, I spoke with Megan from the RSPB. I asked her about how the wetlands in the local area have been established and how these can be used to limit the impact of flooding in the local area. This is what she had to say.
So a few hundred years ago, the estuary would have been completely flooded and would have been used a lot for industry, shipping back and forth. Over the years, natural siltation has happened, has meant that the salt marsh has then been created. What we've done is, where it was farmland, we brought in diggers, dug out loads and loads of land out of there, and basically the natural aquifers that are historically there have refilled the area back up to create a freshwater habitat. So quite different to the salt marsh, completely freshwater. And now it's a really thriving, super important area for conservation. And some of the species that you can get at this time of year are pink-footed geese, which are birds that are coming in from Iceland, and they'll spend the winter here, and they come in their thousands actually to roost here for the winter. People come down and visit us for all sorts of reasons, not just bird watching, but for their well-being. It's all part of that sort of nature therapy that people can get. Just that restful time for your mind, just to connect back with nature and sort of remember how important nature is to us in our everyday life.
Now let's get some views from the general public.
You can just see though how flat it is and how the D is rising. Obviously it's a course which will cause flooding.
There's more high tides now than there were.
Yeah. I mean, they've even tried to sort that in West Kirby, but when they had a flood, the walls were flooded, all the seabirds were coming over the top. It was such a shame. Something needs to be done.
I think the governments have got to get involved in this to be driven to look after wildlife, and also the people who do live in flooding, or risk of flooding.
It's fascinating how creating wetlands can help protect the environment. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Emily. Electronic cigarettes are on the rise, and they've become popular among smokers, but primarily children and teenagers. Unhealthy smoking habits are being picked up at young ages because of fun flavours and eye-catching colours. Reporter Kyra Holgate is out in the Liverpool city centre to find out more. Over to you, Kyra.
With vaping rising from 0.5 to 3.5% in the past 4 years, concern surrounding this epidemic has only grown, mainly how this affects and will affect the over 50% of vapers who are aged 18 to 24. I'm here today in Liverpool to discuss with young people their views on this rising vaping culture.
I feel like there's a lot of fear-mongering around it. With cigarettes, you have the whole cancer worry, but I think with vaping, it's just too young of a fad to really know the health problems.
I think now that they've become more accessible to young people, and the fact that they're being more advertised as more like kid-friendly with like all these like new flavors that are appealing and taste nice. I don't think they taste nice, but I think they've just become a lot more appealing for youths due to their the colors and the flavors and overall easy access.
Personally, I think it should be treated like smoking. It shouldn't be allowed in the majority of public spaces, especially when there's children around, because we don't know what the long-term effects are.
I then also spoke to a local vape shop owner to gauge a more expert opinion on the matter.
If you compare vaping with cigarettes, cigarettes are more kind of a traditional thing, and I think people think twice before lighting a cigarette. But vapes, they look cool, they are little, and it's very accessible, and you can smoke pretty much anywhere. So I think it's very addictive. Yeah, most of it is young people. I mean, like around 18, 19. I even see very young people. I don't know how they're getting their hands on it. It's people's free will to choose their own whatever it is. But I think if you're looking if the government wants to stop the youth from vaping, I think they have to ban it entirely. I don't think the little price increases, or even if they're doing it for their taxes, their benefits, I don't think it's very effective in stopping vaping.
As seen, there's been a clear rise in vaping, but will this fad burn out, or is vaping now a part of our everyday society? I guess only time will tell. Back to the studio.
Thank you for that, Kyra. Now, on to our last story. Music streaming apps such as Spotify and Apple Music have become essential for many young people. But does this mean that classic sources of consuming media, such as radio, are on the decline? Jack Mortimer is on the scene to see what people are thinking. Over to you, Jack.
Spotify have just released a report detailing their 640 million active monthly users, 252 million of these being paid subscribers. In a world with the low cost of radio being so easily accessible, why are people reaching into their pockets for these streaming services? We spoke to some of the members of the public today to find out why. Do you listen to streaming services or radio more?
Probably the radio more.
Streaming services.
I listen to streaming these days.
Do you pay for it?
Yes.
No.
Yes, I do.
Why would you pay for it over something like radio, which is free?
Because on Spotify I can just pick and choose.
If you want to play a specific song, all you've got to do is turn around and go, play this.
What's the advantage to radio over streaming?
I think you get a feel for the people who are on the radio and you get to learn about them while also listening to music at the same time.
Do I think it will decline in years to come? No, I think it will be reinvented in such a way that it provides that subtly different facility than you have when you stream your music.
I think it's always got a place. Old but gold, I say.
After speaking with the public, we now head to Northants-1 to speak with station manager Charlie Stone to find out how this apparent decline in radio has affected him. What kind of struggles do you face trying to build an audience in this and run a radio station in the age of streaming?
So I would say that in 2024 especially, it's quite difficult, especially with your younger audiences. With streaming there, people have the ability to pick their own playlists.
What would you say is the biggest pull to radio?
I think the biggest pull to radio is that connection with somebody. It was sort of proven quite a bit during the COVID-19 pandemic as well, is that it was very easy to feel lonely at that point in time, but radio gave you that friend that almost connected with you that I think you don't get any other way other than on radio.
So, is radio on the decline? Is streaming ready to take over? Well, it's not quite as simple as that. 88% of the UK adult population still tune into their chosen radio stations every single week. However, it is clear that younger audiences are starting to lose interest. As the youth start to replace the older generations, does this mean this is the start of the end for radio? Back to the studio.
Thank you, Jack. Will streaming take over classic mainstream media, or will it stick around? And that's all the stories we have for you tonight. I've been Kai Joyce, thank you, and have a good night.